Hey everyone, this is Althea from Hilltop Tulips, and today I'm going to be doing a painting tutorial. So I have my own Facebook page where I make and sell paintings, and I'm going to be doing one of my landscape paintings that you may have seen on my page. So I'm going to be doing an ombre with trees in front of it. So the colors I have here are Harvest Orange, Pale Daffodil, Nutmeg Brown, and Snow White. So here are the brushes that I'm going to be using. I have this brush. This is a large brush that I'm going to be using to ombre the colors together. And then I have this brush that I'm going to use to make the lines in the trees. And then I have the fan brush that I'm also going to use for the trees. And then this one, I usually have a brush that I use just to fix up little mistakes all over the painting. This is the brush that I would use for that. So there are my brushes. You're also going to need some tape and some scissors to cut your tape with. So the first thing I'm going to do is tape off all of the sides like I did here. So you could do yours in portrait or landscape. I prefer landscape, but you could do yours either way. So I usually go from darkest to lightest. So I'm going to take my nutmeg brown, Take my nutmeg brown, make sure your tape is fully on there. And I'm just going to go ahead, put it right there on the canvas. You don't want it to be a thick coat, but you want it to be enough where you can run it all the way down. So I'm going to do that, and I will be right back with the next color. So I'm going to take this brush and get a good amount of this orange color onto the canvas. I'm going to use the same brush. I didn't wash it off or anything. You can wipe it if you want, but this is going to help with the gradient look. So I'm just going to move this around there lightly. This on there. And this is where you're going to bring into the ombre effect. So what you're going to do here is get it all towards the bottom before you go back into the brown. You want to get it all towards the bottom, as far down as you want it to go. You can have larger parts in your ombre, or you can have weaker parts in your ombre. Doesn't matter. I'm going to show you how to do your ombre. You can put just some orange right on there if you want. Just be careful with the amount that you put on there. So I'm going to get it in there. All I'm going to put on this canvas, the only other color I'm going to put on this canvas is yellow. So I'm going to go a bit bigger with the orange. So I'm going to try and even this out just as much. You don't want those little dips right there in your color. You want it to be really smooth, or in your paint. You want it to be really smooth. And just because there's tape on the sides, that doesn't really mean, just go all crazy on the sides. You still want to keep kind of a basis, but you want to make sure that you're not worried about that as much. So I'm going to come in here with the brown, and I'm going to, you want to make sure both sides are pretty dry. And you're just going to go in there with that. So, since it's dry, it's not going to look as much as ombre at first, but that is one of the things you have to remember when you're doing this process, is it's not going to automatically look like it's supposed to. You're going to have to put a lot of time into the way you put the brush down, and there's a bunch of different factors that you have to factor in here. But just keep messing with it. If it's not looking like you want it to, keep brushing through it and see what you're going to wind up getting. And when you like the way it starts to look, you don't want to mess with it anymore, because you're going to blend it in more. And if you like the way it looks, you don't want to blend it in anymore. So, I think I'm about to where I want it. So I'm going to keep just going in there. So what I did, I was kind of trying to go through it. That's another thing with ombre. You're going to have to, it's like ready, go. You can't stop in the middle and do something else, because then your paint will dry, or it won't wind up looking right. So you have to go when you put the paint down. So what I did was I put the paint down, and then I brushed it all towards the bottom, and then I let this part of the orange be a little bit dry, and then went back into the brown. And while I was bringing this orange down in here, the brown was getting not dry, but like tacky, so I was able to blend it in well. You don't want a big glob of paint. That's not really going to blend well. So there's that. Then I'm going to take my yellow and repeat the same process, but this is the end of the canvas, so it's going to be a little bit different. So I'm going to show you how to do that as well. I'm going to do the same, bringing in the paint. I'm going to do the same thing I did with orange. I'm going to bring in a bit of paint. If you don't have enough paint when you start off, then you can just put some on the canvas straight from the bottle. If you want to add a little bit of white down here, you can do that, but you just wouldn't put yellow all the way down. I'm going to put yellow all the way down, so I don't want any white down there. So, since this is such a contrast in colors, I am going to wipe off my brush just a little bit, because it's going into the deep orange into the light yellow. So I'm going to rinse off my brush real quick. Okay, so your brush can be, a little wet, because I know this is a question that's going to pop up. Your brush can be a little wet, but you don't want it you still want to dry it off. So it's fine if it's a little bit wet. So I'm going to just come through with this yellow. I'm going to do the same thing I did with the orange, but there's going to be slight differences. You're going to, yes, bring it out all the way to the end again, all the way to both sides. And you're going to bring it to the bottom again, unless you have white. If you have white, then you're going to repeat this process that I'm about to show you, just with the white. So you're going to make sure you get all the sides. Get all of those. Then you're going to leave this, I don't know if you've realized, but I did this with the orange and brown too. You're going to leave this tiny little section right here that's going to stay white for just a minute. As you can see, my brown is still a little wet, but it's not like super, it's not like as it was when I started with the yellow. So that's the biggest part about this. You don't want it to be super wet. And then you don't want it to be super dry either. You want to have a good in-between phase. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to slowly work my way up to this orange. It's going to really pretty. So I'm going to come in here with this orange and just go one stroke. You don't want to come down here again because that's going to move your orange all the way to the bottom of the canvas. It's going to be one just dark orange spot. Trust me, tried it before, it did not work out. So it's going to be one dark orange spot down there, so don't do that. I'm going to try and go around. Also, wear clothes that you can get messy in, because you might have paint flicking that way when you're trying to do this. It might be a little bit of a mess, so wear clothes that you know you can get dirty in. So I'm going to go. I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but I am using acrylic paint. So, this blended pretty good. There's a little bitty line right there. You can keep buffing if you want to. There's a little line right here, so I'm going to just move that around a little bit. Okay, so this is what I mean right here. When I said little mess-ups, not really mistakes, but little mess-ups, what I'm going to do is take this really small brush, because it would be harder to try and fix this with this big brush. I'm going to take this little itty-bitty small one, and I'm going to wash it off, but leave it wet. With this, you're going to leave it wet. And I'm just going to kind of buff that out right there. And it's going to pick that up perfectly. Then I'm going to get a little itty bitty piece of paper towel and pick that up just like that. And there you go. So I fixed that little booby right there. And I might add a little bit more yellow right there to kind of blend it in. A little bit more yellow. Just act like that's not there. And it's really hard to do this as well, because see how all of this is blended in? This right here, you can see how all of this is blended in, but this is just a really, hard line right there. So, see, this is what I mean by we're going to have to keep tinkering with it. I'm going to put my yellow right there. And we're going to come in and fix that. So, take this, come in here slowly, and then work it right there. And just work it through. Work it through really nice, really nice. And there you go. So, there is our gradient here. wait for this to dry, and then I'll come back to do the trees. Okay, I'm back. I've let my background dry. So I'm going to be using my Snow White now. And I have my liner brush and my fan brush. If you don't have a fan brush, you can take your liner brush. I would really recommend the fan brush, but if you don't have a fan brush, you can take your liner brush and you can do the same technique as you would with the fan brush. It would just take a lot more time. Okay, so the first thing you're going to need to do for your trees is you're going to take your white and use your angler brush, which is just a really thin brush, and you're going to get a good amount on there. But you don't want to do too much because you don't want your line, which is going to be your trunk, really thick at the top and really thin at the bottom, or anyway in between. You want it to just be a straight line. And do a good line straight down. This is going to be my first tree. I'm going to bring it all the way down. Make sure it's all the way down. Then I'm going to make my tree a little bit shorter over here. You can just make your lines as you go. It's a little bit bigger. That's fine. So I'm going to take my fan brush and I'm going to just get the very tip right here. I'm going to get the very end. You don't want to make the whole brush, just the very, very tips. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to start with the cone at the top, just to determine. You don't want to go really deep in there, just do a little itty bitty drop. And then I'm going to slowly go out. So that's how I did that. I am going to add a moon, so you don't have to add it straight in the middle. You can really put it wherever, but I prefer to add it to the side right here. So I'm going to take my angular brush and I'm going to get some paint, some white paint. I am going to use white because it's the color of the moon. I might use some gray, this too. And I'm going to go in a circular motion, and it should make this really nice circle there. So what I did was I put, with my angler brush, I put the side that was longer down right here, and then I just went all the way around. You can do this a couple times in between it drying. so that you catch that so you can get that moon effect. You don't want to glob on a whole bunch of paint in the very beginning. You want to add maybe 1 to 2 layers, 1 to 3 layers. You don't want to add a whole bunch of paint because then it'll start to crack. And it's a cool effect when you're doing it on purpose, but sometimes it doesn't work. Okay, so I'm back. I'm about to do the very last layer on the moon. So I'm going to get a little bit thicker, start with my point, and come around. Once you do at least 1 layer of the moon with the pointy side down, you should be able to just fill it in from then. Try to give it as even as possible. There you go. Okay, so now I'm going to take this acrylic paint pen that I have. This is normally what I use for my signature, so I'm going to do the same today. And you're going to shake it up. And I'm going to go down in this corner over here. I would use a white point brush, but since the trees are white, I'm going to go in a color that's not the same as the background. Let me get this open. Okay. Try and write over here on this piece of paper just to make sure it's not too, the paint's not coming out quick. I'm going to do my signature here. Okay, then I'm going to take off the tape. So just come over here on these sides. And remember, this tape was so that it didn't come all the way off of the sides. So you can try to be as careful as possible. Might not be a super fine line, but it at least won't be all messy on the sides. So, as you can see, worked pretty well. It's not super messy. All that paint right there would have been on this piece of the canvas. So, but instead, it's a fine line. So, take the rest off. So, I'm going to close the sides. And all the sides are pretty clean. So this is the end result. It's really, really pretty sunset with the white trees, and then we have the moon. Thank you guys so much for watching. This will be for sale on my Facebook page. Make sure you go check out my Facebook page and see what else I have there. So thank you guys so much for watching. Bye.